the 1-3-1 principle: one problem, three solutions, and one recommendation. There's a saying that to hire slowly and fire quickly. And they basically, it's like a monkey that they've got on their back that they come and put on your back, and all of a sudden their problem becomes your problem.
Hello and welcome back, everyone, to another episode of OpsTalk by Paired. My name is Martin. I'm your host. As you guys know, we talk everything teams and operations on this podcast. And today, my guest is Craig Anderson, a serial entrepreneur who started 5 and sold 2 of those businesses, and who's also been a business coach for the past 7 years. So I'm very excited about the things we're going to learn today. Craig, welcome to the show.
Hi, Martin. Great to be here, and thanks for having me.
100%. So I really want to start at the beginning, Craig. What got you into entrepreneurship in the first place?
Sure. Look, I started out as an accountant. I did that for many years and rose through the ranks, you would say, to become a financial controller. But I had this entrepreneurial itch that needed scratching, and I wanted to get out on my own. So I quit my role as a financial controller or finance manager and went and worked as a tax accountant so I could get those skills to open up my own accounting practice. So I bridged that skills gap, and then after about a year, opened up from scratch, and I built that practice over about 6 years from nothing to 5 staff, and exited that business after about 6 years.
Amazing. And what was it that excited about entrepreneurship initially, Craig?
For me, it's about the creativity of it, about taking your own ideas, testing them out in the market, getting that direct feedback, and then testing and measuring, and then trying new things. For me, I love customer reviews. I love customer experience and getting that feedback from customers to say they love the job that you've done, whether it's a product or a service.
Yeah, amazing. And once you sold your accounting firm, what was the next business that you got into?
The business after that was actually a water cooler rental business. I wanted to get into that because I wanted to have assets be the one generating the income. Having been in a service-based business for that sort of 6-year period where it was either my time or my staff time that was generating income, I wanted to get into something that was a little bit more, not purely passive, but where assets were doing the work for me rather than me doing the work. So I purchased a water cooler rental business that had it was a licensee relationship. So I had a geographic area, and I was restricted to purchasing products from the licensor.
Interesting. And so you mentioned, Craig, that the first business you built to 5 staff, correct? And so I imagine that you mentioned before the podcast as well, when I said, we're going to talk about recruiting, and you said, I have plenty of insights to share about that because I made some mistakes. And we love to talk about both like the recruiting mistakes and sort of like the nightmare stories, and also, things that went well when you learned a lot about the power of finding the right person. So I'm very curious how those initial stages of you finding team members and building a team actually went for you.
So the best piece of advice I got when I started out in the accounting practice was to hire an admin assistant. As an accountant or any professional, any business owner has as Dan Martell calls it, a buyback rate. You have a rate that you charge out that you are billing at. As an accountant, you're billing it anywhere from sort of $200 to $300 an hour. It doesn't make sense for you to do 1 minute of admin work that you can pay someone at $25 to $30 an hour. And I'm talking Australian dollars here, so you have to wind that back if you're in the US. So I hired an admin assistant right from the start. She started at doing 2 to 3 days a week, so I could focus on the billable hours that I could get out. So I wasn't wasting time taking phone calls, typing in client details, doing the mail or anything like that. I had someone else doing that so I could be purely on the billing side of things. She turned out to be a really great hire, and I upskilled her into bookkeeping, put her through a bookkeeping course, trained her a bit myself, and then she became a full-time bookkeeper eventually, and then I replaced her with another admin person. What I found is that mums returning to work were excellent employees. They were really keen to work. They had great skills from previous careers or just being a mum. And so I found that they were great people to hire because they knew how to work hard and had great skills, often from a previous corporate or other life that they brought.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So what do you think is it about moms returning to work? Is it just that they have to juggle so many things in motherhood that taking those skills into the workplace?
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. And as I said, often they've had a career before having kids. And so they've already built great skills, maybe done a degree or worked in corporate, which translates really well to a professional practice like an accountant. And, they were keen to work and work hard. So it was great. I loved having them on my team.
Very interesting. So yeah, over the years, Craig, what would you estimate? How many people have you hired?
In my own businesses, so before that, when I worked as an accountant for other businesses, I'd probably hired, 10 to 20 people, and probably done about the same amount since having my own businesses. So not a massive amount, but enough to have had a good amount of experience and made mistakes along the way. And, there's a saying that to hire slowly and fire quickly, the hard way. Some of the mistakes that I made is I didn't hire appropriate from the culture point of view with some of my early hires. And then when they weren't the right cultural fit, I didn't fire quickly enough. And because that cultural fit was having a negative effect on all the employees, I wasn't doing a service to the employees that were doing the right thing by not taking action on the person that was not doing the right thing in the business, if that makes sense.
What kind of culture do you try to build usually in your businesses, Craig?
Try to have an open door and collaborative culture. I've really only built small teams, just up to 5 or 6 staff in business. I haven't built teams of 50 or 100. So it's been a pretty flat sort of structure. I, seek other people's feedback, but also happy to give feedback to people as well and help them to improve autonomy to people and give them the opportunities to learn and grow in those roles. So I find that helps with retention. When people are learning and growing in the role, they stay longer and are more loyal.
Very interesting. And how do you filter for that in the hiring process?
It's difficult, but over time, through others I've seen do a good job, it starts by setting up the culture of the business, making that clear in the job advert, setting out both the good and the bad parts of the role clear so that you're not overselling the job and then having them come in and go, actually, I didn't really know I was going to be doing these other things that I don't enjoy. You really lay it out all before them, and then interviewing well. Depending on the role, I've hired sales roles, which like I did in the water cooler rental business. I found group interviews are really good for sales roles, getting sort of 4 or 5 people together, and then you can see how they interact with one another, and then you can easily narrow that down from there. Professional roles, I've found the traditional sort of one-on-one works the best there. What I would do more going forward, though, is I would do more contract roles to make sure that the cultural fit is better before I offered traditional employment type roles. I think that you can then have more time to really see if the person's fitting well in your organization before you then go down that employment role. In Australia, employment laws really leans more towards the employee than the employer compared to other countries, as far as I understand. So once they're locked in Australia, it's difficult to move underperforming employees on.
Understood. Did you do most of your hiring locally, or did you also go international, do some like offshore or remote hires as well?
Yeah, mostly local, except in the current e-commerce business, which is the one after the water cooler rental. We haven't touched on that yet. I have gone offshore to the Philippines and had a virtual assistant or an assistant from there. So I've hired overseas as well.
Yeah. How did you find that experience? What were the pros/cons?
Well, the pros is the cost saving, much less in the Philippines than Australia, and I'm sure most places in the world. The language ability in the Philippines for English-speaking countries, their English is excellent, usually comes with an American accent, which for Australia is a little different, but I think if you're hiring into America, it's much the same. Just lovely people. They want to work hard. They want to learn. They want to do the right thing by the employer. So they're great people to work with. There is sometimes an efficiency that you don't get with local employees, and so I wouldn't say that there's a direct translation of 100% productivity compared to a local employee. You might get maybe 70 to 80% efficiency compared to a local employee. That's just from my experience.
Understood. Interesting, Craig. So tell us more about your current business, actually the one that we connected over. This is the one that had me and our CEO, Jeff, notice you with Throwbuzz, this e-commerce business. Can you tell us a little bit more about this one?
With the water cooler rental business, as I mentioned, it had a geographic area that it was limited to, and also products that I was limited to as well. And I found that a little bit suffocating as a business owner, that I couldn't expand the area or add my own products to it. So I decided to sell that business. We were able to double it in size, which was really good in sort of a 2 to 3 year period. So that was positive. So, but I decided that I wanted to get into e-commerce, partly because I wanted to help.
By the way, if you're looking to build your team with incredible overseas talent, check us out at paired.so. We help you find your perfect overseas hire that delivers world-class results for the fraction of the local cost for the same role. If for whatever reason you don't end up hiring anyone, you pay nothing, so it's 100% risk-free. We would love to chat and see if we can help you and your business. Link is in the description. Now back to the pod.
My wife get back into sort of the workforce. We've got 5 kids, and she's spent most of the time looking after them at home, but she's really creative and had some great ideas for children's products and had made things for the kids over the years. I decided that we should get into e-commerce and expand on that. I purchased an Amazon course and how to sell on Amazon and went through that. And then we decided to go to the Canton Fair in 2019, right before COVID hit. But we went out, found some products that we might want to sell. I saw an opportunity to find a product in the gaming space. And so we do gaming beanbags. The business that she was going to do kind of fell to the wayside because this one worked out to be a good pick. And so we've developed that business since late 2019 to now. We sell in the US on Amazon and in Australia, mostly on our own website.
Very cool. So how is it going from, accounting firm, local water cooler business to suddenly jump into e-commerce, Amazon? I imagine that you guys probably do like paid advertising for your products. So like a completely different business model, right? How was that transition for you?
Look, I love business and entrepreneurship. And, one of the pivotal books that I read was Michael Gerber's E-Myth, which talks about, I don't know if you've heard of that one before, the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. It's an old school one, but it's a classic that's still relevant. He talks about there's the 3 roles that every business needs, and that's a manager, an entrepreneur, and a technician. So the technician is the person that does the work, the manager is the person that organizes the business, and the entrepreneur is the one that has the vision. And I think once you learn those, most people go into business as a technician. I did as an accountant. I had accounting skills, and I decided to start a business, but I didn't have all of the entrepreneurial and all of the managerial skills. And so about halfway into that business, I was really struggling. I wasn't enjoying it. I decided to get a business coach, and that made all the difference. I upskilled in the managerial and the entrepreneurial side of business, and it changed everything for me. I made some changes in the business. I started enjoying it again. And that's kind of what got me interested in being a business coach myself is once I learned those skills, I was interested in helping others. Business skills are really transferable across industries. Once you understand the rule of business or the game of business, then you can really apply that to different industries. And you might need to upskill on the technical side of things, but the managerial and the entrepreneurship, they transfer really well across industries.
Okay. Yeah. So you have the manager and entrepreneurial thing that you can just grow over across different industries, but once you change industry, obviously the technical knowledge has to be upgraded.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time, learning about manufacturing and MOQs. And in the beanbag, you're looking at material weighting, Pantone colors, boxes, freight, shipping, all that sort of stuff. You do upskill, but I enjoy that. So happy to learn a few new skills and apply my other business skills to that.
Very cool, Craig. And so you have 5 children, as you mentioned. You've had 5 businesses as well. And I'm curious, how do you balance, fatherhood and juggling so many things as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, sometimes it's been out of balance, but one practical thing I do is time blocking. I block time in my calendar for things that are important and then work the lesser things that are around it. So I haven't done it perfectly, but always try and make time for the family and then just build the business the best I can around it. I probably could have spent more time in the business to try and grow them faster, but no one gets to their deathbed and says, I wish I spent more time at work. They say, I wish I spent more time with my family. So I've always tried to make family the priority and then build the business around it and just try and be organized and smart and efficient about it. It's so well, I haven't built $20-30 million businesses, but I'm still married and I've got my kids close. So that's more important to me than success that could cause me to lose those things, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And hopefully the businesses that you've built, provide you guys with the freedom that you get to enjoy as a family together, right? I think you mentioned in our communication that you guys like lived abroad for a few years as well. So I'm curious to hear about, what sort of lifestyle things has, being an entrepreneur opened up for you guys?
Yeah, look, I absolutely recommend it to anyone who's willing to put in the effort. Business has been good to me. So since 2009, that's when I started my first business, the accounting practice. I was able to go home for lunch. Once I had the business coach and I really understand how to manage the business well, I started to have shorter weeks and didn't have to work weekends anymore. I learned how to manage my employees well so that I wasn't constantly interrupted. That's a big complaint from business owners, is that staff always interrupt them. And there's some great tools I learned around that to empower them and not have my time sucked away. So yeah, it's allowed me to have time with my family, take holidays every year. And as you mentioned, last year, we went and lived in France for 6 months, which was an amazing experience. Loved Europe. Didn't get to Hungary, but made it to Germany and Italy and Poland and Lithuania and Sweden and Denmark. So because I had the e-commerce business, because I had got the VA in the Philippines and put the systems in place and that the business could not run itself, but run it with much less input from me.
Love that, Craig. Very cool. So what would be your top tip for empowering your team members so you don't get interrupted all the time? I think that one's going to be very valuable for our listeners.
That's probably broken into two parts. Empowering them is about giving them the skills and then the trust to do the job. In terms of the interruptions, one thing that is a super helpful tip is what I would call desk visits. What happens normally is the employee says, I don't know how to do something. They come and knock on your door or somehow contact the owner and say, how do I do X, Y, Z? I don't know how to do it. And they basically, it's like a monkey that they've got on their back that they come and put on your back, and all of a sudden their problem becomes your problem. Because they've also often they come to your physical office, right? And they say, this is my problem, and you have an interruption. The way to flip that around is that twice a day, you make a plan to visit your employees at their workspace. So whether that's a desk or their workstation in the warehouse or whatever it might be. So at 9 and 3, and you can change the times up depending on the day, you go to their desk, they have their questions ready for you, and you solve those problems at their desk, because what you're leaving that monkey with them. So you say, right, from let's say 9 to 10, you go and do your visits with your direct reports. You go to their desk, they have their problems ready for you to ask. You answer their problems. Then you also ask them, what are you going to deliver today? What's your output going to be today? And then at 3 o'clock, you come back and you do the same thing. What are the problems that I can help you solve? And what did you deliver, or what are you going to invoice, right? And in between, you can go back to your office. You can have your door closed if you need to, and you can get into your deep work, and you don't have people bringing their problems to you and giving their monkeys to you. So that's a really valuable tip I learned from someone and learned from my first business coach. And it's super effective when you implement it. The employees like it because they know that you're coming on a regular basis to answer their questions, to help with the roadblocks. But then you get your time back and your interruption-free time between, say, 10 and 3. Every day you can do your deep work or whatever that is.
Very cool, Craig. I think that might be one of the most insightful team management things that we heard on the podcast in a while. It's so simple. I think it makes psychological sense as well for the team members, right? They're not worried, oh my God, I have this bottleneck. What am I going to do? They know, okay, Craig's or, whoever it is, the CEO, the founder is going to pass by my desk and we're going to figure it out. So I can relax and I can focus on something else. So I think that's super powerful.
The other thing that you add to that, and is what I didn't have a name for it, but Dan Martell calls it the 1-3-1 principle: 1 problem, 3 solutions, and 1 recommendation. So when you go to their desk, you don't want them to just say, these are my problems. They need to say, this is my problem. These are the 3 solutions that are possible, and I think we should choose one of them, right? So it's empowering them to actually do the preparation as well beforehand, so that they're not simply being lazy. They can have questions, but they need to have researched what they think are 3 possible solutions and what they recommend that should be done. Now, the owner might come and say, that's great, but here's some context. This is actually what you should do. But at least in most cases, they're going to solve the problem themselves.
Amazing, Craig. Super valuable. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast, and we'll drop the links to Throne Boss if someone wants an amazing gaming chair in the links below, and also ways to reach out and check out the rest of what you do. And yeah, thank you for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me. Great to chat.